I'd go through stretches of time where I felt really good and empowered by that, but then adversity would come up again. And the challenge meter would go boop, just enough to push me over the edge and make me go back to using. So today I'm going to talk a little bit deeper about the journey of addiction and some of the realizations I've had for myself personally and outside of me in lots of conversations with other men recently. As many of you guys know, if you've listened to the podcast before, I went through my biggest battles with addiction in my 20s, and the trailing off of those addictive patterns really followed me into my 30s. And I'm in a place right now where I can honestly say that those addictions don't have a hold on me anymore. And I know that this is a relevant conversation for a lot of men out there. I'm not just talking about addictions to substances. I'm talking about addictions to anything that we use to escape. It could be an addiction to pornography, could be an addiction to gaming, could be an addiction to fast food, could be an addiction to sweets, sugar, candies, addiction to sex, women, Tinder, you name it. Addiction to YouTube, social media, anything where we go to escape the challenges of life. Now, for those of you guys who also been listening, you know that recently we lost a really close brother of ours this year because of addictive behaviors. And it was really challenging for me to witness one of my own, someone who I consider like flesh and blood to me, to succumb to this, and how fortunate I feel to have made it through myself, recognizing that this is a journey so many of us go on. So when it comes to addiction, I was bringing up this example and talking to a brother of mine recently that when I was going through it myself, it was like driving from Los Angeles to New York City without using GPS or ignoring the GPS, right? So what I meant by this is a lot of times I would recognize and have that moment of clarity that says, hey, enough is enough. I gotta stop smoking. I gotta stop smoking tobacco. I gotta stop smoking weed. It's not good for me anymore. And I would, all at once, I'd say, that's it, I'm done. I've arrived, right? When you say, I'm never gonna smoke again. How many of you guys have done that before, right? We've all done that at some point. But the problem is that's like being somewhere in the middle of the country, like in Topeka, Kansas, and saying, I made it, I'm in New York City. But you're really not. And I think there's a lot of reasons why we make that declaration and say that I'm done once and for all. For me, it felt powerful, and it felt like, how could I ever leave the door open to go back? It doesn't really feel like a commitment unless I commit all the way. But the reality of it is that I was still years away from finally being out from under the grips of this addiction. So when I use that metaphor of driving from LA to New York without using GPS, it's believing my own BS, basically telling myself that I've overcome this challenge in my life and now I'm here, I've arrived, when I really didn't. And I dove a little bit deeper into this with my buddy because we were talking about this, that I had to go through cycles of making a commitment to stop and then going back to using again and then making a commitment to stop and going back to using again. Every step along the way was less and less and less and less. But the impact of making that commitment that I'm never ever going to do it again and then slipping and falling back was a real shot to my confidence. It made me question my ability to commit. It made me strengthen the power of my own resilience, resolve, to put it down once and for all. I'd go through stretches of time where I felt really good and empowered by that, but then adversity would come up again and the challenge meter would go boop, just enough to push me over the edge and make me go back to using. I know that this is an experience that a lot of us have. And I want to talk a little bit about the differences between using vision and fear and the imaginative powers of the mind. So in that time where going back in my life where I said I'm done once and for all, and I was really in the middle of the country somewhere in Kansas, but I was trying to get to New York City, the vision of one day being complete with this addiction and closing my eyes and really imagining that one day I will be rid of this is a lot different than going at it from a fearful place. A lot of times I was making those declarations because I was afraid of what might happen if I continued to use in that way. For those of you who are going through this right now, maybe you're still somewhere in the middle of the country trying to make your way all the way out to New York, to the end of being out from under the powers of this addiction. My encouragement to you is to tap into the imaginative powers of your mind. Really see yourself someday. Close your eyes right now and see yourself someday no longer having to reach for the tobacco pouch, no longer grabbing a bottle to numb yourself, or searching for some porn videos, or turning on the Xbox. See yourself at a place in your life where that no longer has power over you. There's a lot of miles on that journey to cover. We're not going to talk about them all in this video. This is just the part where you get to really see yourself overcoming that adversity. But acknowledging that just because you can see it in your mind, just because you can imagine driving into Times Square, seeing the Statue of Liberty, making your way all the way to your destination, doesn't mean that you still don't have a journey to travel. But you can start to imagine yourself and see yourself there now. Because the more that you vision yourself and the more that you intend for yourself to not be a victim or not a victim, but powerless in the face of your addictions, the more it will be a possibility, the more it will be accessible to you. And then acknowledging along the way that I'm not yet there. So you don't have to beat yourself up every time you fall off the wagon. You can just grab yourself in the tumble and get yourself back on. Reclaim that power for yourself. So if any of you guys are struggling on that journey through addiction right now, whatever the substance or the resource of escape might be for you, bring a little more realism into the conversation. Bring a little more vision and imagination of where you will be one day. And then identify, what are the steps I need to take right now? What is the next 100 miles of road that I have to drive through Kansas in order to make my way towards New York City? In order to make my way towards this result, this destination I want to be at, overcoming my addiction, reclaiming my power for myself. Think about that today. Think about that right now. And if you know somebody who's also going through the addictive journey, share this video with them. Because I know that this would have been the most valuable message for me to hear when I was locked in the middle of the country and my GPS wasn't working. And I had no idea how I was ever going to make it to the end of this. But here I am. I've made it to this point. And I can honestly say that it's because I didn't give up. And I didn't count myself out. Never let myself go all the way back to the full tumble. And if you have, that's fine. You can get back in the car. You can start driving again. Get your GPS centered, get your compass out, and find your way again. It's never too late. All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in this week. I look forward to seeing you guys for the next installment of our Monday morning meditations.